Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are in the world. Thanks for joining us here on Tipping Point. I am your host, Andrew Podkowitz, and I'm joined today by Farah Aslam of Fulcrum Digital, who recently joined the team. Welcome, Farah.
Thank you. Glad to be here today.
We are streaming out live across LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. So for folks out there who have any questions or comments along the way, please do feel free to drop them in whatever platform you are watching or listening on, and we will certainly get to them as we go. So now that the housekeeping is out of the way, really excited to have you today. You've recently joined the Fulcrum team, as I said, as Global Head of Sales, and I had the pleasure of spending some time with you up in the New York City office, as well as out in Las Vegas this past week at Shop Talk. We have a lot to unpack today, but can we start off with a little bit of background, if you want to give us a little bit of your history, where you've been and what you've been up to for your past 3 or 4 careers?
Yeah. I'm ex Infosys, ex Adobe. I've been on both sides of the table when it comes to digital. I've spent the majority of my career actually working in the digital space, specifically focused on e-commerce, I would say, but also helping a lot of really well-known brands and large enterprises go through that daunting task of digital transformation. I have worked across a multitude of different types of crafts. I've done sales, marketing, alliances. I was a PM for a period of time. I've done some documentation. I've helped build delivery teams. I've really run the gamut, I would say, in terms of types of roles that I have tried to do as best that I can. Sometimes it goes well, sometimes it doesn't. And at Fulcrum, I'm the global head of sales. So I'm working across, our global team. We have, quite a few offices across the world. We have lots of companies that we service also that are global in nature. And we are also very focused on digital transformation. As of late, I have had a heavy emphasis on AI. And actually, this is one reason why I joined Fulcrum Digital, because we have been in the AI space for quite a while, even before it became kind of a trend that everyone was talking about. So that's a little bit about me and my company.
I'm curious, through that inventory of different roles you've been in over the years, what was your favorite, not location, but type of role? What was your favorite, and what was your least favorite? And then this may be a different answer. What was the most challenging? I don't say which was the least challenging, but what was the most challenging?
Most challenging. Okay. So my favorite was this one, of course.
Oh, this is like, and I fully support that, but this is kind of like those late night talk shows where someone comes out to promote their new movie. This is the best movie I've ever done, and you're like, are all the movies you've done progressively better?
Well,
And I think of people like Nicolas Cage or Sylvester Stallone, and like they're not always better than the last one. But anyway, but I endorse that.
yeah. The worst role I would say that I ever had, like across everything I've ever done.
Yeah, just
Ever?
the type of role, because you were talking
Oh,
about
type of role.
like PMing and solutioning and
Yeah.
strategy. It takes
Yeah.
time, right? When
I
you
was gonna
start your
say,
career, most
I was
people
gonna,
don't. Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say bussing tables in college for that period of time was really hard.
Oh gosh, I mean, hard, but probably one of the most.
Physically, yeah, I was
Yeah,
physically,
but
and
also,
it was dirty.
and you actually, like, you segued me really nicely there without even knowing it, which is like understanding working in service and translating that into this type of industry. And I was hoping that you'd mention something about client success or the service space, because you and I were talking about this, I think, out in Las Vegas, which is, I firmly believe that everyone who enters our industry should spend the first 6 months of their career in the client success role.
Absolutely.
I think it is the most challenging, hardest job in tech. And you learn a tremendous amount really quickly, which sets you up for success, certainly in other roles. All right, so favorite, least favorite, that was the busing,
Yeah.
and then most challenging type of role for you.
I would say probably project management was the most challenging for me because I'm like, just personally, I'm a very impatient person. And with project management, you have to be very patient. You have to, you're managing so many people across a cross-functional team. And there's so many different types of people depending on the type of role that they're doing and the challenges that they're facing. I think that was really tough for me. But it's funny that I say that because I would say where I've been most successful is working across cross-functional teams. So maybe even though that was my experience that I didn't love the most, maybe it was the one that I learned the most from. So there is something positive about it.
There's always something positive.
Yeah, of course.
Should always take something positive out of it. And through that same lens, sort of piggybacking a bit on some of the things we've been talking about on this show for the past few weeks, where you kindly stepped in and helped host a couple of those. So thank you for that. The tables are turned. You're getting asked the questions instead of asking the questions. One thing that we're all painfully aware of, I think, especially in the tech space, is the representation of women in tech. So when you talk about the inherent challenges of a role like project management, and then you factor in the gender disparity in throughout the industry, can you talk a little bit about how that played in or didn't play into some of the challenges and how you had to navigate that space in managing such teams without this kind of diversity that I think that we all expect to see.
Wish that there was. Yeah. I mean, listen, it's so funny. I think at Shop Talk just recently, I was actually talking about this like frequently with my sisters that are in the industry, right? That we couldn't believe how many women were at this conference that's focused really around tech, right? I mean, listen, it's changed massively, but I remember, over a decade ago, it was very male dominated for sure. Like it's harder to have your name heard or to have your ideas heard. I remember actually I was working for one company. I won't say any names because I don't want to spend any time trashing anyone, right? But I was working for one company and we were having a huge like country sales kickoff, right? And there were probably about 50 people in the room. And I was the only woman that was like raising my hand and saying anything. And I just joined this company recently at that point. And I asked one of my colleagues, why do you think that is? Why is that? And she was like, I mean, Farah, we're just finally getting a seat at the table. It's not like it's designed for us, right. And it's interesting when like she said that. And it's interesting when I think back at that, it's like, it still doesn't feel like it's completely designed for us. It still doesn't feel like we have like it's accommodating enough, because a lot of times when you are a female in any work industry, that also comes with familial obligations, right? And I think that's what she's talking about, is the table being designed for women to be successful. I mean, from all the way over a decade ago, we're still kind of feeling like that, but there's been lots of positive strides that have been made. I mean, I think I was talking about this previously with one of our guests that were on Tipping Point about, being a mom and managing those responsibilities along with being in the tech industry. And we were talking about balance. And I loved what she said. She said, it's not about balance, it's about prioritizing. It's so good. Like, what a good thing to say. Because it's true, it's about prioritizing.
And it's interesting because, balance, I think, is something that many people struggle with, irrespective of gender. And certainly in an industry like ours, in tech, in commerce, where it doesn't turn off, right? This is not a 9-to-5 factory. This is a 24/7 storefront and back office system that needs to be running when folks are asleep, and we are responsible for keeping those things running. And then you factor in, that there may be added responsibilities, let's call it, for many women in the space. You for one have two young children, mm-hmm. right? So how do you balance that, especially in sort of a post-COVID hybrid work environment, which many of us are now working in? So can you talk a little bit about what that looks like, how well you do with it, and then a little bit about how maybe the dynamic has changed in a hybrid work environment or a remote work environment that potentially could be benefiting women in the space?
Yeah, totally. So how I balance it, well, not very, I don't know. I wouldn't say that it's so bad because I feel like my kids are happy, right? And I feel happy. I feel like I really love the time that I get with them. I try to really focus in and be there, which I think is hard to do if you work a ton, right? It's really hard to like not have your brain just go off into space, because that's what you need, right? You need to be able to recalculate your brain a little bit. But I think that I do an okay job. You know, I have little times that I block in my calendar. For example, I definitely pick my son up on Fridays. I don't miss that. Right, I pick him up from school and I try to spend some time with him. I don't miss a soccer game. I'm actually coaching the soccer team, so I can't actually miss it. But like, I make a point to not miss soccer. Right, I'm super involved in all the stuff that he's doing. I ask him frequently, how's it going? What's going on? I try to have these really kind of intimate conversations with him where he's getting a piece of me and I'm giving him, full attention. I have a wonderful partner. My husband's amazing. He really swings in. I mean, this is part of it. It's not just up to me, it's up to him too. And he's got a very serious career, right? But he is prioritizing his family. So that's part of it, is having him. He's a strong partner. And then also we have help, right? So this is the thing that I think that not everyone has access to is help, good childcare. So all of those things together, I think, make a better situation. The saying, it takes a village. It's so true. It takes a village. Like, we try to get as much time with grandma and grandpa and granny and granddad and the uncles and the aunts, because it's not just about me, but it's about, a child really having a well-rounded, like family enhanced experience as they're growing up.
Yeah.
So there's that. And you asked about challenge, but I don't remember the question.
Yeah, well, it was a little bit about, in a hybrid and remote work environment, are there opportunities available now? And is that evolution that you talked about that's been happening for 10 years, do you see that accelerating because, potentially allowing folks back in the workforce who may have been absent from it, but now, the folks can maybe more easily juggle those responsibilities because it's not an in-office, commute situation, but a work from home, and folks are, if a kid popped on a screen share 10 years ago, people would be horrified. Now, dogs, kids, whatever runs through the screen, people are unfazed, whether it's network news or a work call.
Where they want to meet your kid. That's what happens. Like, sometimes when my son like breaks in, I'm like, come on, leave. And people are like, why didn't you introduce me?
Yeah. and that's great. And, we don't have kids yet, but we have 2 dogs, and a lot of folks have dogs
and
now.
People are like, what are your dogs' names?
Yeah. And it certainly, I don't say it humanizes people, but it gives, another dimension of their personality when you see them in their sort of home work environment. And, I think it's kind of nice, certainly, to see that. But back to the main question, which is, does this afford folks, is it opening up more doors for folks, do you think?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you're seeing so many more women who would have maybe been a stay-at-home mom otherwise that are now taking virtual roles, right? Because they can do both at this point. You're seeing, because, a lot of companies now, most companies, I would say, even though a lot of companies want, workers to come back to the office, they're being a lot more accommodating, which means that people can be there for pickups and people can be there if there's an emergency that happens, right? They're not so, I would say, anxious about actually going into the city or traveling 30 or 45 miles away. So I do think that, we're seeing a lot more workers overall in the workspace. And the benefit actually is that we're getting a more well-rounded workforce, and we're also taking pressure off of men. We're taking pressure off of men. Now they don't have to feel like they have to make as much as 2 incomes. And that's what's really important here. Now we're leveling out responsibility, quite frankly. It's becoming more even across, like I talk about my husband, it's more even across the board. Now we both can enjoy our children, enjoy each other, enjoy our jobs. And he's not working 80, 90 hours a week. He doesn't have to do that. Whereas maybe otherwise he would have had to really work much harder, I think, if I was deciding to stay home.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's sometimes when I hear things like that, I grew up in a house where I had very much role reversal, right? My dad worked from home and was always home and came to my sports, events and Parents' Day. And my mom worked in New York City and commuted every day. So it's for the traditional American family that most of my friends had, but I was very different. So it's I never saw it like that. I assumed everyone's mom commuted to the city, right? That's how I grew up. And pillows in our house, that said, don't tell your daughter to marry a doctor or a lawyer. Tell her she can be one, kind of thing. Was sort of what was in our
That's
house.
good. I love that.
But that's, it's I think it is an important distinction, that not only is it opening the door for folks to potentially continue on their career path while also juggling those responsibilities, but the hybrid work model is also, I think you said it, it's taking some pressure off men, because we really need a lot of pressure relief. But
no, but it's true.
in another
Who wants
way,
to be the only one?
it could also be facilitating, like you said, a bit more shared responsibility, right?
Yeah.
For men who work from home, that traditionally would have been the commuters or whatever, now they're able to actually be more present and have a larger role in their children's lives. So it becomes, hopefully it's sort of getting, so it's even across over time.
Yeah.
And I think the other piece here we're talking about, and I sort of was thinking more along the lines of when you were project managing, and I think you and I touched on this sort of offline last week after the session that you hosted. The element of, I don't know how to phrase this well, where maybe historically a guy who comes in and is really tough as nails sort of has this level of like earned respect because they're a real ball buster, as it were.
Mm-hmm.
But if a woman were to take the same approach, it could be a very different perception, or historically has been, where she's not admired for being tough, but sort of resented for being tough, even though it's the same behavior. Is that can you talk a little bit about that, if you've seen any of that in your career?
I mean, I have so much experience with that in particular. I've really actually done a lot of work on myself, because I would say, like, naturally I'm very outcome focused. And as a result, that's more of a hard management style. It really is. Someone who's very like numbers. And I would say, yes, that's absolutely true. If I come into a meeting and I am demanding certain things, then it's definitely viewed as, aggressive. That's the word that would be used in description of me, is she's very aggressive. And I've heard it multiple times. She's very aggressive. But then if it's a man, he's effective. He's very effective. And it's interesting, right? Because I also think society is changing at the same time, especially in the States, right? Like, people don't want to be managed like that anymore. They want they want to be managed in a way where whatever it is it drives them, that is always thought of when their boss is interacting with them, right? And so I've made some significant changes and shifts in myself also, which I think has turned out a better result in the long run. At least in the short term, it seems like it, where I'm really tuned in with, my team. I ask them things like, what drives you? And I remember that before I actually interact with them. I know I'm not totally answering the question.
No, you
but
are. You absolutely are. No,
yeah,
you are.
I want to talk about this, because I feel like one thing that I've learned in my journey actually is that, Farah, you're too aggressive. People don't like the way you make them feel. That's been a lot of what I've heard, is that they don't like the way you feel, but your numbers are awesome. But a lot of times the numbers is the very last part of it, even though I'm superseding anybody else by, I'm rounding them, or circling whatever it is that they're doing. Okay. And so I've been really, I would say, over the last 4 years of my career, this has been a big like theme almost. It's like, how do I work on, the view or the reputation almost as like shifting aggression, like she's aggressive to effective. And the answer to me has been exactly what a lot of leaders are doing, regardless of if they're male or female. It doesn't really matter what it is, but they're changing the way that they interact with their employees by asking things like, what drives you, right? Because the way that I incentivize someone or help somebody do their job that says, I'm incentivized by money, this is what drives me.
Yep.
That's a very easy fix for me. Okay. So then you pay them to do the thing that you need them to do. Right. On the flip side, if somebody says to me, I just want to know that I'm doing a really good job. I want to know that I'm the master of whatever it is I'm doing. Well, then I give them lots of education and I make sure that they are getting the certifications and the things that they need to really feel driven by working on our team and feeling like they're contributing, right? So that has shifted me, I would say. And it's not even about, I guess it started with the feedback that I was getting. And I think I was getting that feedback because I am a woman and I'm not a man, right? So
Yeah, and I'm curious, do you think that's a byproduct of sort of the traditional role of, let's say, let's put it in parental sense of maybe the father being the enforcer, but the mother being sort of the maternal and softer,
probably.
translates into like, well, the guy, the male boss is driving us, and I expect the female boss to be, to have like a warm hug for me because I need
Yeah.
to feel better. Yeah, I certainly think that there's something to that.
But wouldn't it be great if we all shifted?
Yeah,
If all of us shifted and we were more focused on what actually drives the people that work for us? Because I think that companies, it doesn't matter the size of the company, you're going to be a lot more successful if you understand what matters to someone, right? It's just like if you're selling to a buyer, like we spend so much energy. I mean, you know this, you head up marketing, you spend so much energy and time trying to figure out what is that formula. Is it the color that I'm using? Is it is it the words? Is it how often I'm interacting with this person? What is it that is going to drive them to buy whatever it is that I'm selling? And it's, if you just apply that across everything, pretty much everything in your life, even like what you eat for dinner.
we used to have at the first agency I was at, we had this this one of our tech leaders, really smart guy. I mean, more accomplished by the time he was 30 than I'll ever be in my life. Was like a professional ballroom dancer and a
Wow.
certified pilot and like a chess grand. I mean, just ridiculous. Like, and he and his wife, they managed their house in Trello or Jira, I forget which one, but they had Jira boards for like how they managed, which is an amazing thing. So you mentioned talking about making a decision for dinner. That's funny.
That's hilarious. Well, because the Jira board, obviously, like it comes all like the grocery shopping is obviously the beginning, or whatever. The idea before the grocery shopping is actually
right
where the work stream starts.
My mind doesn't work like that. My mind works in like Post-it notes on top of Post-it notes on top of Post-it notes. So it's all in there, but it's
With smudges on them. You don't even know what they say.
uncovering it. Like, oh, there's that thing that was like lurking in the back of my head. But when you talk about what drives people, and certainly in a professional setting, I've always believed. I shouldn't say I've always believed. I've learned this over time. To me, like the three like legs of the. And I'm sorry if my table is shaking here on the thing. The three legs of the stool are: do you love what you do? Do you love the people you work with? And like, does the compensation like keep that stable? Right? You could be making $5 million a year and hate your job, but you might be happy because that's what drives you, right? So
Yeah,
that's a really poignant thing about I think leading people and managing people's understanding. Everyone's driven by something different. You can't manage everyone the same because people respond differently and need different kinds of language and need different types of motivation, and that's certainly an important piece of that. I think another thing, when we talk about women in tech and women in leadership, and we talk about a historically male-dominated industry, I sort of think about all these stories that where you hear, how many women's shoes are designed by men, right?
yeah.
So it's sort of like so when you think about e-commerce experiences or marketing experiences or how, we are collectively delivering for a client and helping them grow, women are half the consuming population, right? Like in the US.
That's how
So
we check. Yeah.
right. So why are there not more women in the background of those service providers and folks who work with these brands? And certainly I think the percentages have increased impressively along the marketing front. But when it comes to more technical roles and development and stuff, I think we have a tremendous amount of work to do still.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the truth is that it starts in childhood.
Hmm.
Like it starts in childhood. And I've been very, very intentional and thoughtful about this, because even though I am a huge advocate for women in tech and women in leadership, I mean, this is my mission, right? This is my mission, is to make sure that other people can look at me and say, I can do that too. I'm going to take that risk. I'm going to do that thing that she did, right? Or that I have people who are on my team and they feel that they can come to me and ask for that promotion or ask for the feedback that's going to be based on their actual results and not how they make someone feel, right? I would say that it really comes down to in childhood. I mean, we're buying still little girls, dolls, and we buy boys Legos. We still do that. And I think it starts there. When you look at the science and math, really the STEM crafts, we have to, as a society, start telling girls not that they're pretty, but that they're smart. It really starts there. It really does.
I agree. And you've also got, outside of what we buy children as gifts, you look at, and I think you and I were talking about this a few weeks ago, you look at, the majority of tech for young people is gaming, right? And the gaming universe is heavily geared toward traditionally boy activities, right? Whether they're
Mm-hmm.
first person shooters and war games and things like that, and sports. And then you factor in, so already there's not enough, I think, introduction, and appeal to, across children genders, to make sure that folks are getting exposure to that, and building on that experience. But there has to be also an element of, and one of the reasons why there may be a slow evolution here is, as children, you have role models and you have people you look up to, and you say, this
Mm-hmm.
is someone in this industry who I admire, who I would like to be like. And there's not a lot of diversity up there historically, right?
No,
So who are young girls looking up to
who are they
be?
looking up
Is it
to?
a mirrored career? Is it, there's not a lot out there, unfortunately, that are, at least that are heavily promoted to show that sort of, that path forward.
I mean, parents. I don't. I'll have to. We'll have to put the stats in the comments or something. I don't know exactly what the stat. I think it's like parents are twice as much more likely to have their sons tested for being gifted than their daughters. I mean, that should just give it to us right there. That's exactly what it is. It starts in the home. It starts with children. It really does. And
And
it's
I
not
am
that
one of
these
those that goes
parents
the
don't
other
want their
way,
children.
because we got to test to make sure that this kid's not deficient. That's how I am. But
Well, like,
sorry.
like I
Okay.
think, I think what it is, it's interesting. It's like by the time a girl is 7, almost all STEM toys have been completely eliminated from her toy diet. Quite frankly,
Hmm.
like we have to show. It's not even like it has nothing to do with companies even, right? It has nothing to do with Fulcrum Digital or any company.
Yeah.
But what it does have to do with is parenting and educational institutions, and it starts there. It starts at the very beginning. I mean, like, think about it. I was watching this video recently. It was a TED talk, and what the woman was saying is that we're more likely to encourage a boy to jump off the monkey bars or play on the monkey bars, whereas with the girl, we're like, be careful when you're on the swings, go down the slide slowly. And so from a very young age, sorry, my phone is ringing. From a very young age, we're teaching girls not to take risk.
Yep.
I think that actually that's something that I didn't experience as a child. I am my dad's daughter for sure. Like, I'm also my mom's daughter, but my dad, he came to this country when he was in his late teens. It was a huge risk, huge risk. He had 2 British pounds, and he still has those 2 British pounds. He never spent them. He didn't take a dime from anyone. He worked 4 jobs at one point. He cleaned McDonald's bathrooms at one point, right? He did everything that he could do to get ahead. He's built some of the world's largest infrastructures when it comes to electrical systems. That's where he went to. And I had this story, right, in my background. And I also had a dad who said, no, go play soccer. I played soccer my whole life, right? Go play soccer, go outside, get dirty, take risk. If you want to do something, do it. Don't be afraid. Just because you're a girl, you shouldn't be afraid of it. You should take risks, try it, right? And I think that upbringing was something different for me. Definitely something different. I wouldn't say that all women
It
have
was
that,
different
you
in the
know?
sense that your upbringing was different from probably your contemporaries, right?
Oh,
But it
for
wasn't
sure.
different for you because that's all you knew. Like
That's
this
all
was
I
the
knew.
world source. You're like
Yeah.
this,
Yeah.
which certainly
I was,
cultivated
when,
a
when
sense
I
of
was a kid, I was like, doesn't everybody have 100 math problems after their homework that their grandparents made for them? No,
this
but
was
mine
mine.
did.
Doesn't everyone's dad work from home? Like that was your environment
That's
is what
exactly right.
such an
Yeah.
impact on when you talk about nature nurture, it is so impactful. I'm curious, as we sort of round out in the next few minutes or so. And just a quick reminder, this is Tipping Point Live. I'm Andrew Podkowitz. I'm joined here by Farah Aslam. We are live out across Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. If you have any questions, by all means, drop them in the chat and we'll get to them. So speaking of risks, can you talk a little bit about risks that you've taken, risks that have paid off and risks that didn't go so well?
I don't think I have a risk that didn't go well, to be honest with
Ooh.
you, because I view life as practice. Everything's practice. I say this to my team too. Like every pitch, every interaction, everything that might make you nervous, every speaking engagement that you get, just view it as practice. It's practice for something bigger and greater because it's true. That's what it is. Um, I would say that most of the risks that I've taken have been they've paid off in one way or another. The biggest risk that I took was moving from New York to Sydney, Australia for Adobe. I worked for Adobe. That was a huge risk because it's literally across the world, literally.
Yeah.
Um, I didn't, I would say, have a lot in the way of knowledge of Australia before I went, but it was one of the most it was one of the richest experiences I've had in my entire life. It actually, tipped off this travel bug that I then caught, which is great, right? I ended up traveling all over the world and, really focusing on international business in particular. I love global business. I love working across other cultures. And that was the catalyst that showed me that, right? That actually brought me to that place. So that was a really giant risk. I would say that to anyone, like as our listeners, if you have a risk that you're contemplating, just do it. Like what's the harm? This is life. It's all about experience, really. So take it.
Yeah. Well, very, very sound sage advice. Um, so what else? What else do you want to talk about? There's so much to unpack, and I know we're short on time. So we may have to, to look to the next one to go a little bit deeper. I guess we'll close on one more topic, which is we just both of us left Vegas after a few very busy days at Shop Talk. What and we haven't actually talked about this. We're going in cold to all these conversations.
Yeah.
But what'd you learn out there? What are you seeing out there in the
Oh.
e-com space and the tech space? I know you reconnected with a lot of folks that you've worked with over the years. It was sort of a pretty big reunion, I think, for a lot of people, and it was great being out there with you. But what's happening out there in e-com?
I mean, it is hustling and bustling, that's for sure. It's growing at such a rapid pace. There's a stat, actually, the World Economic Forum published it last year. They say that 75% of businesses across the globe will have an e-commerce channel within today it'll be 4 years. I mean, that's massive growth when you think about it. And I definitely felt that at the conference. I mean, there's a lot of new technologies that have come into the space. There's many more very relevant e-commerce platforms that are out in the market. I mean, I just love where it's going. It really is. I mean, this because you've been in the e-commerce space for so long. It really is this super innovative, push the boundaries type of industry. And it feels so lucky that I've been a part of it. So that's really what I saw.
Something that I found really interesting, and I've been in this space for about 10 years or so. It's always felt like every couple years, let's say on like a 2-year cycle, it's been like, this is the new tech that everyone needs and must have and is phenomenal, right? It has this
Yeah.
sort of growth trajectory. whether it was, Magento at the height of the SMB Magento, space, when it was still Magento before Adobe, as Shopify and Shopify Plus launched, and it became sort of the next wave of, oh my gosh, and sort of big commerce coming in and fitting in between those. It didn't feel like that this year. It felt like there was so much, and you have so many more candidates for your e-com platform and third-party tech stack, which we know grows year over year, but there was no like one overarching theme of the show. It's gotten so big when you think back to its roots as like a little back. I forget which.
I kept saying that to you. Remember, I was like, "What? This is Shoptalk? It's so good."
I remember when we first walked in, we were, we were going to some of the booths and talking to folks, and you were, your conversations were a bit longer than mine were. And then we recognized, I think you recognized, holy crap, it's not just this corner. We turned the corner, like, oh, that's how much ground we have to cover. Okay, we'll keep these pithy.
You were like, come on, Farah, don't spend so much time. I was just so excited to talk to all the different technologies.
I wish it was another day, because
me too. I was saying that.
And it was great to see everybody. All right, so we're gonna hit the lightning round here as we head into the home stretch. What is your favorite destination for personal travel?
Langkawi, Malaysia. It's where I got married. It's a beautiful island. It's amazing.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Where is your favorite place to go for a work conference?
Oh my gosh. Favorite place to go for? Oh, I like the work conferences that happen in Barcelona.
Ooh,
those are good ones. Yeah. I feel like the food's great. You get a little mini vacation out of it, because you obviously extend your trip, Did you think I was going to say Las Vegas?
No. I was hoping you weren't going to say Las Vegas. You actually just hit on one of my favorite 3 cities in the world. So I am on Barcelona. And this is a question that you might have answered differently 2 days ago. What is your favorite airline to travel?
Fulcrum Digital Airlines. Kidding.
Very nice. Are we launching an airline now? We've launched Fulcrum One. We've launched Rise. Yeah. We have
Rise,
other things out there.
That's what we should call it. Fulcrum Rise. No, I'm kidding. That's our AI platform, everyone, by the way.
I'm going to wrap up with a story, because I know you're based in New Jersey.
Yeah.
And it's a story I've told some people, but certainly never on Tipping Point. I'm probably going to get some backlash. I was born in New York City. I grew up in southwestern Connecticut. And when you grow up there, you are, speaking of nature nurture, you are taught to, how do I say this delicately, hate New Jersey. Right. This is a thing in the Northeast, right? For those not from who are not familiar, the tri-state area of the U.S., New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut have this pretty fierce rivalry, and New Jersey gets a pretty bad rap. And I had cousins in New Jersey, and I grew up, driving out there with my parents, and it always, took forever, and it was pretty brutal. Mm-hmm. So when I was talking with Fulcrum a couple of years ago, back then it was the Red Stage arm of Fulcrum, which was the e-commerce arm, now Fulcrum Commerce. They were based in Jersey City. Now the company is based in New York City, Manhattan. Back then it was Jersey City. So when I was talking with the founder over there, Adam Morris, he said, "Well, why don't you come meet the team?" We're sort of discussing, if I was going to come on board. And then at the time I was living in Westchester and Yonkers, and I said, "Sure, you want to just meet downtown? Downtown's Manhattan, right?" He said, "No, why don't you come to Jersey City?" And I froze. I was like, "Whoa, no. I can't." That's
really far.
It's like a bunch of bridges and a bunch of tunnels, and it's pun intended, a bridge too far for me. I don't go to New Jersey, but I conceded and said, I'll for you, I'll come to New Jersey. So like any educated New Yorker, which I consider myself, I went to Penn Station, because that's how you get to New Jersey from New York, right? I mean, any adult knows that. So I went to Penn Station, and after 20 minutes, because I'm a guy. Right. This is a guy thing, apparently, but women can do it too.
Yeah.
It's not ask for directions, but I find that generally women are more sensible. Women are more sensible than guys, and actually will ask for directions where we won't. So 20 minutes, couldn't find the path. So finally I buckled and asked someone like, where exactly is the path? And they informed me it's not at Penn Station. It's over at 34th and Broadway. So I begrudgingly went over to 34th and Broadway, went down the escalator, got my ticket, got on a PATH train, and 13 glorious minutes later, I was in Newport City or Newport Beach.
California?
No, I forget. There's a Newport, Jersey City.
Oh, okay.
So I get off the path, and like it was this epiphany. Like I realized I grew up hating New Jersey for all the wrong reasons. It's because people from New York and Connecticut don't know how to get there and don't know what time to go, because it takes 3 hours to get to the GWB. Then I end up in the Poconos because I have no sense of direction. So my lifelong resentment and animosity for New Jersey evaporated in the instant I realized it was completely on me why I had a problem with New Jersey. So a lot of love for the Garden State now. Who's saying hello from the Garden State left? Thank you, Adriana. You are. So I learned the hard way that New Jersey is wonderful.
I have a theory. I think that there are a bunch of people from New Jersey that want everybody else to think that it's terrible, so that people don't move there, people out there don't drive up the costs anymore. But New Jersey has, out of those 3 states, definitely the best schools by far.
Farah, it's the Garden State. Like when my wife and I we went to go visit my cousin when we were still dating, and I think we went to Clark, New Jersey, which is sort of, there's a whole other argument about central, north, and south, but we won't get into that today. And we got off the exit, and there were like sprawling like shopping plazas with tons of parking and big stores, and Lindsay was like, "Where is this heaven? Like, where are we?" Like, no, it's New Jersey.
She's like, "We're gonna spend all day here."
Yeah. So there was so I felt really guilty for my whole life, throwing shade on New Jersey. And
New Jersey's good.
I was the wrong person. So anyway, great chatting as always. Thanks for joining us here on Tipping Point Live. Thanks for everyone who tuned in. As always, we'll be back next week, 4 p.m. East Coast time, 1 p.m. Pacific time. And until then, have a wonderful week, and we'll chat with you all then. Thanks, Farah.
Bye.